and all the way to 10. Okay? In the 1950s, now for some of you that may seem like a long time ago, but we have some staff members or staff member who was born in that time period. And Mrs. Sire has volunteered for me to use her as a reference. When Mrs. Sire was born, leukemia had a very high death rate. Okay? If you had lymphoma, you had a 35% chance to live. If you had leukemia, you had a 14% chance to live. And if you were a child, you would have less than a 10% chance. So I'm going to ask my 10 volunteers to do this now. I want one of you to stay standing, and the other 9 of you to sit down. Okay? If you had leukemia, 1 in 10 of you would survive. 1950. All right, go ahead and stand back up, please. What year did we say the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society was started? 1949. Where did our statistics start? 1950. So, in 1949, 1950, we started to see a little bit of research in leukemia. We started to see if we can identify what's causing it, how can we help patients. So let's jump ahead 20 years. 1970. So I had a few staff members volunteer. Mrs. Sorrell said that she was born in the 70s. Mrs. Nelson, who was also up here, said she was born in the 70s. Those numbers jumped up to 60% for lymphoma, 35% for leukemia. And if we look at if you were under the age of 15 when you got cancer, you would have a 41% chance to live. So I want 6 of you to sit down this time. 4 of you, on average, 4 would survive, 6 of them would not. Okay? Let's jump ahead 20 more years. Who in here was born in 1990s? In the 90s? A lot of you, right?
Were you born in the 90s?
A few of you were probably born in 2000. Some of that range, maybe even 2001, but a lot of us were born in that time period. Lymphoma jumps up to 80%. Leukemia at 57%. And the child rates for leukemia are at 84%. So, now, only 2 of you sit down. I hope you see what's happening. Every time we were at 1. Then we went to 4. Now we are at 8. I want to jump ahead again a little bit. I talked to you in the beginning, I said, I had a conversation with a doctor on a Tuesday night. And I also had a conversation with that same doctor again on Wednesday and Thursday. When we got to Omaha, they told me my son had leukemia, and they were almost positive at that point. I asked the doctor 3 questions. I asked the doctor, is my son going to be okay? How did my son get cancer? And how long has my son had cancer? The only one of those 3 questions she could answer for me was this. Is my son going to be okay? They still don't know what causes leukemia. They know a couple very strong things in radiation or some chemicals, but I know my son wasn't exposed to those. The one question she could answer was, is my son going to be okay? And she told me my son has a 90% chance to survive. 90%. If my son was born in the 50s, she would have said a 10% chance. Now, why? What has changed from 10% to 90%? What's changed is the amount of research. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a lot of other fundraisers out there and societies have donated a tremendous amount of money to help that happen. Research, clinical studies, and all the drugs have completely changed what my life would be like today. So I'll ask you this question. In 2017, I picked that for a reason. That's 5 years from now. What's so important about 5 years? What's a 5-year survival rate? Right? The 8th grade class. What year will you graduate from high school? 2017. What will be the survival rates of leukemia? What will be the survival rates of lymphoma? That's what the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is trying to do. Okay? You guys can go ahead and sit down. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help.